So, I really like Star Wars. I don't love it, I don't hate it, but I certainly wouldn't call myself a fan. However, I really wouldn't call myself a fan of anything, as I don't really like that word, but that's another far more philosophical question, for another time. Here's a quick summary of my Star Wars hot takes. And the new Mandalorian show from Disney Plus is solidly around the middle. First season was really great, second season was really not. But I did love some of the new locations it introduced, in particular, the planet of Nevarro, which is basically just like shitty Tatooine. I plan on basing my Star Wars Legion Empire force on the Revenant Imperials you see there, so today we're going to build some Nevarro-based Legion terrain, and we'll be doing that using basic white packaging styrofoam. This stuff is easy to cut and basically free, as it likely came as packaging with the last thing you bought. I've been collecting some of my favorite pieces from the last year or so if you're a hoarder like me, you're good to go. But if you're not, I'm sure you can ask around and find some. We then need to make a plan, and we start by getting some reference material. I saved a few pictures from the show and picked out what I felt were the most defining design elements. In this case, it was the angled struts, the crossed framing, hexagonal doors, domes, and electrical poking out metal things. And then we went on from there. I approached the actual building process pretty fluidly, basically picking up bits of packaging foam and finding interesting shapes in them that I then cut out and added the details on top of. I cut bigger details from thicker packaging foam, and then brought in some thinner strips and foam core for the extra details. For the domes, I also added some styrofoam balls I got from the dollar store, and finally added a bunch of thin dowels and toothpicks to represent pipes and antennae and stuff like that. Once I had those done, I mixed up some texture paint. For this, I used some acrylic caulking with some fine decorative sand mixed in, which I also bought at the dollar store, and a healthy load of paint. I went back and forth on the specific measurements until I was happy, and then started slapping it on. I focused this on the main surfaces and tried to avoid the details that would eventually be metal, as this is meant to give everything a stony feel. However, if it did get on the metal bits, I wasn't too worried, as the texture kind of looks a bit like rust. After giving that a night to dry, I went on with another base coat, this time a mix of Mod Podge and black paint, which I covered the entire thing in. These two coats were probably overkill, but they did make the final product really strong, which is important to me as someone who likes to carry his terrain around to gaming nights and tournaments as such. Next, we move on to the painting, and we're going to start with some dry overbrushing. I first do a really heavy overbrush of dark gray before stippling some dark brown in spots to add some variety. Then I do another lighter gray dry brush before finally a very light brushing on of a off-white cream/ivory color. I then paint the metal by mixing up a very dark color with some black and a bright silver and applying this to all the metal details like pipes, boxes, and doors. Then I mix up a reddy brown and apply this in patches to the metal to represent rust, particularly focusing on the bits of metal sections that got a bit of texturing on them. Finally, I do a stippled highlight of bright silver to finish it off. I'm liking how these are looking so far, but I felt like they needed something else to really make them pop. So I did a bit of Googling and printed out a bunch of Imperial propaganda posters in various sizes. I then cut them out and applied them to the finished pieces with some PVA glue. Not 100% sure these are chronologically accurate, as The Mandalorian does take place after Return of the Jedi, but there's still some remnants of the Empire around, so I think it works. Then I applied a little Agrax Earthshade to these to dirty them up before covering them in a matte medium to lock them in. And that's it! Starting with a really cheap material, doing a really simple build, and finally applying a quick paint job with a couple of added details to make it pop, makes some really great looking buildings. And while I only completed 2 so far, I did build another 3, so I'll continue to work on those. And to see more pics of them, hop over to my Instagram, as I'll post more there once they're done. I really like how these turned out, and it definitely makes me want to push forward and paint up the rest of my Empire army. And finally get a game of Legion in. For now, thank you again for all your support, and especially my first ever patron, Sam. I mentioned it before, but I do have a Patreon page set up, and by supporting me there, you can really help to get these videos done faster, and better than ever. I don't have a ton set up there yet, but I do have some plans and will love to see you there. For the rest of you, thanks again for all your support. Keep commenting, subscribing, and if you feel like it, share these videos around. I really like that we have something going here, and with your help, we can make it something really big. For now, I'm Anders. Have a good one, everyone.